Within the discourse on climate change, fossil fuels are often seen as the biggest source of concern and the most pressing challenge we currently face. However, much less attention has been paid to the destructive and often violent impact that the oil and gas industries have had and continue to have on Indigenous communities and their land. Over 80% of the Earth's biodiversity is found on Indigenous land, yet it is this land that has been systematically targeted by corporations looking to expand their extraction of oil and gas against the wishes of Indigenous communities, whereby land is transformed into a commodity extracted for profit. The treatment of Indigenous communities cannot be separated from the destructive environmental consequences of this industry. The company behind the Line 3 oil pipeline expansion project in the USA and Canada, Enbridge, have averaged one oil spill every 20 days, and tar sands oil extraction will result in 30% higher emissions than that of crude oil. The disregard for environmental protection through such projects can also be seen through the devastating consequences local communities and land are having to endure. For example, nearly 80% of 300 protected wetlands across the Canadian coastal GasLink pipeline route, many of which lie in sacred Wet'suwet'en land, have been affected by construction, and irresponsible water diversion has threatened the Manoomin wild rice species, which the Anishinaabe Nation views as sacred and rely on for food and as a valuable source of income. The response of the companies behind these projects to resistance is also of deep concern. Using a tactic known as corporate counterinsurgency, private corporations, colluding with the police and military, have begun to adopt militarized tactics to oppress and stigmatize communities protecting their land. These tactics have included invasive surveillance, armed raids, and labeling peaceful protesters as extremists, invoking the language of terrorism to justify a militarized state response. Therefore, while we discuss climate change, we must place social justice and decolonialism at the heart of our agenda. While there is a lot that we can learn and incorporate from Indigenous knowledge and ways of caring for the environment, such as practices of reciprocity, alliance building, and viewing the earth through the lens of kinship, the romanticisation and appropriation of Indigenous knowledge and practices is deeply problematic. Therefore, future climate action necessarily requires justice for communities that face systemic oppression due to ongoing processes of colonisation, such as the violent policing, pollution, and treaty violations seen in the projects discussed here. This approach invites both recognition and representation of human and non-human victims of climate change, and may include the incorporation of storytelling into how we discuss climate, extending greater legal rights to non-human nature, and even establishing environmental reparations.